Hey everyone, welcome back to the Narcissist Exposed channel. If you're here today, it means you've probably felt that heavy kind of pain. The kind that comes from giving everything to someone who never truly cared. This video is going to be raw and honest, because today we're talking about one of the hardest truths to accept, that some people, especially narcissists, didn't just ignore your pain, they enjoyed it. But the good news, you're going to learn exactly how to take your power back. At first it feels unthinkable. How could someone who claimed to love you, who said you were their everything, actually take pleasure in your heartbreak? But to the narcissist, your pain was never tragic. It was proof. Proof that they had power over you. Every tear, every sleepless night, every time you begged them to explain, they felt validated. It confirmed that they mattered, that they could control your emotions like a puppet master pulling invisible strings. You see, narcissists feed on reactions. Your emotions are their fuel. Whether joy, love, or pain, it doesn't matter. The more intense your feelings, the more alive they feel. When you cried, they felt significant. When you doubted yourself, they felt strong. They watched you unravel, and deep inside, it gave them a twisted sense of importance. They don't feel empathy. They feel victory when you fall apart, because your suffering reminds them they still have power. In the beginning, they mirrored your soul so perfectly that you believed you'd found your other half. They studied your dreams, your fears, your deepest desires, and reflected them back to you. It wasn't love, it was research. They were learning the buttons to push later. That's why it felt so magical at first. It was custom-built illusion. And when the mask fell, you realized the person you loved never existed. You fell for a reflection of yourself, designed to manipulate you. The cruelest part is that while you were trying to save the relationship, they were testing how much pain you could tolerate. They would provoke you, withdraw affection, or suddenly become cold just to see how far they could push before you broke. Every apology you gave, every time you tried to make peace, they saw it as proof of their dominance. To them, your compassion wasn't beautiful. It was weakness to exploit, a leash to keep you tied to their chaos. Narcissists live in a strange emotional economy. They can't create real connection, so they steal energy from those who can. When you smiled, they took credit. When you cried, they took pleasure. And the more confused you became, the more control they had. Confusion is their favorite weapon. If you're too disoriented to understand what's happening, you'll stop trusting yourself, and once your self-trust is gone, they can rewrite your reality however they want. That's why they twist stories. They'll hurt you, then act like the victim. They'll say you're too sensitive, too dramatic, or too emotional. It's gaslighting, a deliberate tactic to make you question your perception. And when you start doubting your own feelings, they've won. Because now, instead of holding them accountable, you're defending yourself to them. It's psychological warfare disguised as love, and it leaves scars that even time struggles to erase. But the truth is, they never wanted love. They wanted control. Real love requires vulnerability, accountability, and empathy. All things a narcissist runs from. Control, on the other hand, feels safe to them. They don't care if it's negative attention, as long as it keeps you emotionally hooked. Every time you argued, every time you cried, every time you explained yourself, they got exactly what they wanted, your focus. To them, your suffering was connection. It's painful to realize that your pain was entertainment to someone you loved, but you need to see it clearly, because that clarity is where your healing begins. The narcissist's game ends the moment you stop reacting, the moment you choose calm over chaos, silence over pleading, peace over explanation. Their power begins to crumble. They can't survive without emotional supply. When you detach, it's like taking oxygen from their ego. They suffocate in their own emptiness. Here's what they can't stand: your peace. They can't handle being ignored, not because they miss you, but because they need the chaos to feel alive. Silence is torture for a narcissist. When you stop responding, you take back control of the story. You become the calm they can't manipulate, and that's when you start to heal. When your stillness becomes louder than their drama, and they finally have to face what they've always run from: their own emptiness. Your calmness terrifies them. Every time you choose not to engage, you shatter their illusion of power. They've built their identity around controlling your reactions. So when you no longer respond with fear, tears, or explanations, they start to lose their sense of self. They panic. They'll provoke you harder, send mixed messages, or suddenly pretend to change anything to get a reaction. But don't fall for it. The moment you give them silence, you hold the upper hand. A narcissist's greatest fear is invisibility. They can't stand being irrelevant. When they can't feed on your emotions, they seek new victims, hoping to recreate the control they lost over you. But what they don't realize is that your silence isn't weakness, it's power. It's the quiet rebuilding of your spirit. While they scramble to replace you, you're learning peace, rediscovering your worth, and realizing that their validation was never real love. It was emotional slavery. When you finally detach, something incredible happens. They lose their mirror. Narcissists don't have stable identities. They define themselves through others, your attention, your praise, even your anger. Without you reflecting their importance back to them, they start to collapse internally. That's why they'll reappear, pretending to care, offering false apologies. It's not love, it's panic. They miss the version of themselves that existed only through your emotional reactions. You might wonder if they ever think about what they did, if guilt ever haunts them. The truth? Rarely. Narcissists don't process emotions like normal people. Instead of remorse, they feel frustration that their manipulation no longer works. They miss the control, not the connection. If they reach out, it's not because they've changed, it's because they want to see if they still can. They want to know if you'll open the door again, even after they burned the house down. But you're wiser now. You've learned that closure doesn't come from them, it comes from you. You don't need their apology to move on, because their apology would only be another manipulation. They apologize to reopen access, not to make amends. True closure comes when you finally accept that their behavior was never your fault. You didn't cause their cruelty. You were simply the closest target when they needed someone to project their emptiness onto. Understand this. Your love was never wasted. You were teaching yourself what real love should feel like. You learned to give deeply, to empathize, to stand by someone through storms. Those are beautiful qualities, and they belong to you, not to them. They used your kindness for control, but your kindness is still your power. Don't harden your heart, heal it, because your ability to love deeply is what makes you stronger than they could ever pretend to be. Taking back your power isn't about revenge, it's about clarity. Revenge keeps you tied to them through anger. Clarity sets you free through understanding. When you finally see their actions for what they are, a reflection of their brokenness, not your worth, the chains fall off. You stop asking why they did it. You start asking what you can learn. And that's when transformation begins. You're not their victim anymore. You're the survivor of their manipulation. Every time you choose peace over chaos, you rebuild your identity. Every time you refuse to respond, you repair the parts of you they tried to destroy. And when you no longer seek validation from someone who caused your pain, that's when healing truly begins. You stop trying to prove your value to them because you finally see it for yourself. They didn't break you, they revealed your strength. And now, that strength is yours to protect fiercely. They wanted you desperate, confused, and dependent, because that's the version of you they could control. But the moment you start standing tall again, the game ends. You realize that their approval was never the prize, your peace was, and now you're reclaiming it. The silence that once felt unbearable becomes your sanctuary. It's where your thoughts clear, your self-worth returns, and their power dissolves into the nothingness it always was. Your pain was once their fuel, but your recovery is their downfall. There's nothing more threatening to a narcissist than a person they can no longer manipulate. When they see you calm, confident, and unbothered, they realize the supply is gone, and that realization eats at them. But for you, it's liberation. You've turned their weapon into wisdom. You've learned that peace doesn't come from fixing others. It comes from finally choosing yourself. Narcissists never understand real love because love requires equality, vulnerability, and mutual respect. To them, love is a transaction, a power exchange. They give affection only when it benefits them. They interpret kindness as weakness and empathy as a tool to be exploited. When you showed compassion, they saw opportunity. When you forgave, they saw permission. But the truth is, you were never weak. You were operating from love in a place they could never reach. Authenticity. You can't teach them empathy, because empathy threatens their control. To care would mean admitting wrongdoing, and their ego cannot survive that. That's why they double down when caught. They lie, deflect, or project their behavior onto you. They'll say you're the narcissist, that you're toxic, or that you're the problem. It's psychological inversion, flipping the narrative so they stay the victim. But deep down they know. That's why they fear people who see through them. They'll try to rewrite your story to protect their image. They'll twist your pain into proof that you were unstable or dramatic. To the world, they'll play the hero, calm, logical, and composed, while you're left looking emotional and broken. But time has a way of revealing the truth. Their mask may fool others for a while, but masks crack under pressure. So don't waste your energy defending your reputation. Their lies can't outlive your peace. One day they'll wake up and realize that the people they manipulated no longer trust them. The charm that once worked will start to fail. Their stories will sound rehearsed, their smiles forced. People will start to notice inconsistencies, quiet red flags they ignored before. And when that day comes, the narcissist will feel the collapse of their world, not because of karma's revenge, but because truth always surfaces, and truth is the one thing they can't control. By then, you'll be far away, emotionally, mentally, and maybe even physically. You'll have rebuilt your life from the ground up, learning peace in the places their chaos once lived. You'll realize that healing wasn't about forgetting them, but remembering yourself. They'll still talk about you, still twist stories, still pretend they won, but you'll know better. Because the real victory isn't in being believed, it's in being free. Taking back your power means no longer needing them to understand. They won't, and that's okay. You don't need their acknowledgement to validate your truth. Healing is not about getting justice from them, it's about creating peace within yourself. When you stop expecting accountability from the person who hurt you, you stop giving them emotional rent in your mind. That's when your energy shifts. You no longer orbit around their chaos. You become your own center. Healing isn't a straight line. It's messy, unpredictable, and full of moments when you doubt your progress. You might still cry, still miss them, still question why it had to happen. That's normal. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without falling apart. It's learning to look at the wound and say, yes, that happened, but it doesn't define me anymore. Every scar becomes a reminder of your survival, not your suffering. True strength is quiet. It doesn't scream revenge or shout victory. It breathes in calmness. It walks away when ego begs you to fight. It chooses peace over proving a point. That's the power narcissists never expect you to find. The power of not engaging. Because when you stop feeding the fire, it dies. You become untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you're healed. And healed people are unpredictable. They don't dance to manipulation anymore. You'll start to see things differently. What once broke you, now teaches you. Their cruelty becomes your clarity. You realize their behavior wasn't personal. It was a symptom of their emptiness. They hurt others to escape themselves. That's their curse, not yours. The compassion you once gave them now belongs to you. You start using it to nurture your peace, your passions, your purpose. You stop bleeding for those who cut you. That's growth. They tried to fill their void by draining you, but that kind of hunger never ends. You could have given them every ounce of love, and it still wouldn't have been enough, because they weren't looking for love. They were looking for power. But here's the irony. The more they tried to break you, the stronger you became. They thought your pain would destroy you, but it transformed you instead. And now they're left chasing ghosts of the person they'll never be. You are not their healer anymore. You've spent enough energy trying to fix what was never yours to repair. Healing someone who refuses to see their own damage is like pouring light into a black hole. It never fills. Narcissists don't want healing. They want control. But your heart is sacred, and it's time to protect it. You owe them nothing, not forgiveness, not explanation, not understanding. You owe yourself peace, and peace begins where their influence ends. Peace starts the moment you stop asking why. Why did they do it? Why couldn't they love me? Why wasn't I enough? Those questions keep you tied to their story. The truth is, it was never about you. Their cruelty was a mirror of their own emptiness. They hurt you because your light exposed their darkness. You were too real for them, too honest, too kind, and that terrified them. So they tried to destroy what they couldn't become. When you finally see that their behavior was never a reflection of your worth, something powerful shifts inside you. You stop taking their abuse personally. You start seeing it as evidence of their sickness, not your failure. And from that moment on, you take back control of the narrative. You realize that every insult, every manipulation, every betrayal says more about them than it ever did about you. Their actions reveal their emptiness, not your inadequacy. And so you stop explaining yourself. You stop arguing with their lies. You stop trying to convince them of your good intentions. Because truth doesn't need defending. It stands on its own. You walk away from the conversations that go in circles, from the apologies that mean nothing, from the cycles that never end. That silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the understanding that not every battle deserves your presence, and not every wound deserves reopening. Your silence becomes louder than their lies. It speaks volumes in a language they can't comprehend. Narcissists thrive on noise, on chaos, drama, and emotional storms. But silence terrifies them. It forces them to face the echo of their own emptiness. When you stop reacting, they're left alone with their reflection, and that's their worst nightmare. They'll try everything to pull you back into the storm, but now you know the truth. Peace is power. Don't wait for their apology. It's never coming, at least, not sincerely. Narcissists don't feel regret, they feel inconvenience. If they say I'm sorry, it's only because they want something, another chance, another supply, another way to pull you back in. True remorse requires empathy, and empathy threatens their control. So don't chase closure through their words. Closure comes from acceptance, the acceptance that they will never be the person you imagined them to be. When they realize you no longer care, it hits them harder than any argument ever could. They thrive on knowing they still occupy space in your mind. So when you finally stop thinking about them, when your emotions no longer rise at their name, it destroys the illusion they've built. They're addicted to being unforgettable, but your healing makes them irrelevant. And that's the kind of power they can't manipulate, can't imitate, and can't ever reclaim. Healing doesn't mean the memories disappear. There will still be days when a song, a smell, or a place brings everything rushing back. But this time, it won't break you. You'll feel the ache, take a breath, and keep moving forward. Because now, you understand, you can hold the memory without carrying the weight. You've learned that peace isn't the absence of pain, it's the ability to sit with it and still choose to move toward the light. Every tear you once cried has turned into wisdom. Every sleepless night became the foundation of your strength. You learned patience, boundaries, and discernment. You now know what manipulation feels like, what emotional starvation looks like, what real love requires. You're no longer naive, you're awakened. That's the beauty of pain. It transforms innocence into insight. You've grown from a wounded soul into someone who can recognize toxicity before it takes root. Don't let their coldness make you question your warmth. Your ability to feel deeply is not a flaw, it's a gift. Narcissists see emotion as weakness because they've spent their whole lives running from their own. But you embrace it. You allow yourself to feel, to heal, to rebuild, and that makes you powerful in ways they'll never comprehend. Your heart, though scarred, still beats with empathy. That's not fragility. That's invincibility in disguise. The hardest lesson to learn is that they truly enjoyed your pain. It's a truth that cuts deep because it forces you to accept that the love you gave was never shared. It was consumed. But this realization isn't meant to harden you, It's meant to awaken you. Once you understand that your suffering was their satisfaction, you'll stop giving them access to your emotions. You'll start guarding your energy like a treasure. That awareness is the beginning of freedom. You've stared into darkness and survived it. You've watched your heart break and somehow found the strength to keep going. That's not weakness. That's power beyond anything they'll ever know. You've seen what happens when love is used as a weapon, and you still choose to love yourself again. That's divine resilience. The narcissist's game ends the moment you realize that your ability to feel deeply isn't a curse. It's your greatest form of power. They'll never understand how you rose after everything they tried to destroy. They'll tell others you're obsessed, bitter, or dramatic because they need to believe they still matter. Let them talk. Their words hold no weight anymore. What matters is the quiet strength that now lives inside you, the strength that says, I survived, because survival isn't just breathing, it's thriving after destruction. You didn't just endure the storm, you became the calm after it. Stop trying to make them see what they did. Narcissists can't see truth because it threatens their entire identity. If they ever admitted the damage they caused, their illusion would collapse. That's why they live in denial. It's safer than accountability. But you don't need their recognition to heal. Healing happens when you stop seeking validation from those who benefit from your pain. You no longer need to be understood by those who choose blindness over truth. Your life after them becomes your greatest testimony. Every boundary you set, every peaceful night you sleep, every moment you choose silence over chaos, it's proof of your evolution. You've learned that peace is not a destination but a discipline. It's something you protect daily, and while they chase temporary highs through manipulation and control, you'll be chasing authenticity, love and serenity. That's how you win, not by fighting but by rising. You don't need revenge to feel powerful. Revenge keeps you tied to the same cycle of pain. What truly destroys a narcissist isn't your anger, it's your indifference, it's your silence, your smile, your calmness when they expect chaos. It's living a life that no longer revolves around them, because the moment they realize they no longer have emotional control over you, they vanish into irrelevance. You become untouchable, and they become a shadow fading behind you. You'll notice one day that their name doesn't sting anymore. The memories lose their grip. You'll think of them and feel nothing. That's real freedom. The version of you they once controlled no longer exists. You've evolved beyond their reach. They'll never get to meet this version of you, the one who knows their worth, who doesn't chase validation, who refuses to settle for half love and manipulation. You're not their victim anymore. You're your own victory. Now you stand in your own light, the same light they once tried to dim. You speak softer, but your presence feels stronger. You laugh without fear, love without begging, and live without pretending. That's what real healing looks like. It's not dramatic, it's quiet, graceful, and unstoppable. Your peace becomes magnetic, your silence becomes sacred, and the world starts to see what they never could, the strength, the beauty, and the depth of your soul. Your story isn't about what they did to you, it's about what you became because of it. You were broken open, but in those cracks, light entered. You learned boundaries, courage, and the power of walking away. You've turned pain into wisdom, heartbreak into awareness. You no longer chase love, you attract it by existing as your authentic self. That's how you take your power back, not by fighting for love, but by becoming love itself. Thank you for watching. If this message spoke to your heart, remember, your pain was never wasted. It was preparation. Every scar tells a story of survival, and every healed wound glows with strength. You are not what they did to you. You are what you chose to become after. So keep rising, keep healing, and never forget the greatest revenge is peace. If this video resonated, hit like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more truth and healing.